Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, T.Dot. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into the content, please go and subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. And if you haven't done so already, episode 72 of From the Shed End podcast is out now, where we discuss contract expiries and renewals for certain players. We talk about RB Salzburg game earlier on this week, and we look ahead to Brighton as well in the game, which will be kicking off at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Now, Graham Potter has done his press conference earlier on today. He didn't really give much away, as he never really does, but he did give us some updates in terms of team injury. Now, Koulibaly is out. This game has come too early for Koulibaly to be coming back into the centre-back fold at Chelsea. And also, the usual suspects in Wesley Fofana and N'Golo Kante are also out. Reece James also missing for tomorrow's game. But that does kind of give us a bit of a dilemma in terms of how do we line up. Mateo Kovacic, who came off midweek with a calf strain, is fit to play the game, but there is concerns around whether he'll start the game or if he can even feature in tomorrow's game. So I do think Kovacic is a risk, but then you do have that luxury against Dinamo Zagreb and later on next week to potentially rest someone like Kovacic. And like we said in episode 72, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go and check that out. Like we said in episode 72 of From the Shed End, this is a game that we actually need to win. Our next two Premier League games are Brighton and Arsenal between the Zagreb game. They're must-win games in my opinion. So if I'm Graham Potter, I'm potentially going to risk Kovacic in a game like this. But obviously Brighton, they're ninth in the league. They haven't won a game in five. It's a team that Graham Potter will know very, very well after his time there at the Amex. It's just a lot of the players that are still there are his players. Obviously Cucurella being one that's moved over to Chelsea, but a lot of the way that the team are playing, the tactics, the formation, obviously the new manager's coming in, he's trying to install what he wants to do with the team. He hasn't quite got there yet, but you can see that there's signs that Brighton are improving. As I said, they're ninth in the league, doing more than probably most expected at this point in the season. But we have to seriously consider, Manchester United are behind us, Liverpool are behind us, not far behind in points. Newcastle, who won brilliantly at Spurs last weekend, are now fourth, and obviously the likes of Arsenal, Spurs, and Manchester City are, of course, holding up the other top four spots as well. So this is a game that we actually need to win. We need to put in a really good performance. Graham Potter coming into it unbeaten. Kepa, another brilliant performance again midweek, and previous to that in Brentford and Manchester games as well. So I would expect him to retain his place in between the sticks. But this is a game that we really will struggle against if we're not careful. There were signs in it against RB Salzburg that we allowed, especially in the second half, we allowed Salzburg so much room to run into behind our wing backs, Raheem Sterling and Christian Pulisic at times in the second half. We can't afford to do that against Brighton because they're a team that will capitalise on that. Trossard, Pascal Gross, another player that's really good for them, McAllister as well. And if Tariq Lamptey plays down that right side as well, then whoever plays on our left side, whether it's Cucurella or whether it's Ben Chilwell, is going to have their work cut out as well. So I think, and obviously Danny Welbeck doesn't really score as many goals as he potentially should do, but he's definitely a threat going forward for Brighton. So we have to be mindful and careful of things that Brighton can do to us and damage us if we're not careful, especially on the counter-attack as well. Like I said, they haven't won in their last five, so we should be beating them based on form, based on how Graham Potter started his time at Chelsea and some of the results and performances that we've put in as well over the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to give my lineup now for what I would go with and the team that I would pick for tomorrow's game. Strangely, if you have already listened to episode 72, I've actually gone against what I said I would do in that game. Mainly because we recorded it earlier today and I've sat down and had a little think about who I would actually line up with, who I would go with. And if I'm honest, I can see, ideally and realistically, we should be going with a back four. We should be going for a back four, maybe three in midfield, three up front, 4-3-3, traditional. I think we should be doing that, or 4-2-1-3 or something like that. I don't know, but we shouldn't really be doing a back five for the main reasons. Koulibaly's not fully fit. And if he's not fully fit, it kind of hampers and gives you less options who you can play as centre-backs. Now, I've gone for Kepa in goal. I think Kepa, again, as I've said before, deserves the form that he's in. He deserves his time as the goalkeeper, number one spot. Unfortunate for Mendy. I do think Mendy will get a start against Dinamo Zagreb in the week against in the Champions League. I think he'll get an opportunity to play, maybe rest Kepa for that game with Arsenal in mind as well on next Sunday. But I've gone for Christian Pulisic at right wing back. Now, you could potentially put Ruben Loftus-Cheek there. You could potentially put Azpilicueta there. You could even arguably say Raheem Sterling could play there. But I think if we're going to do a back five with the two wing backs, I think Christian Pulisic, who had a relatively good game against Salzburg, and yes, it was Salzburg. It's worrying. I mean, I don't know. That is a really tricky one. Who do you go with? I wouldn't go with Azpilicueta. Originally I said I'd go for a back four, but I just think Graham Potter is going to try and match Brighton tactically, and Brighton tend to play with the three centre backs and the two wing backs as wingers essentially going forward. So I think Graham Potter will try and match that like for like, and you know, if we do go for a back four, then Azpilicueta is going to be in for a long day. But he's also going to be in a long day anyway if he's a centre-back, right centre-back. So I've gone against what I said in the podcast episode. So Theo, I apologise. But I've gone for Christian Pulisic as right wing-back. Crazy, I know. But our options are limited with Reece James being out. We know that Azpilicueta can't play there. We're kind of stuck to who we can use in that position. Ruben Loftus-Cheek is another one who can play there and plays really well there. But I think we miss him when he's not in midfield, and I think we're going to need a lot of energy in that midfield against Brighton. So I've gone for Pulisic. My three centre-backs, I've gone for Azpilicueta, I've gone for Thiago Silva, and I've gone for Trevor Chalobah, who, again, I thought was superb against RB Salzburg in the week earlier on. And Thiago Silva, who I think will get a rest against Dinamo Zagreb. And, you know, we need to keep him fresh as well. So I think he'll get one run out against Brighton. Might even bring him off at some point if we need to, and maybe go to a back four. But I think we need to start the game with Thiago Silva just to allow, you know, we need a goal. And like I said, against Salzburg, we need an early goal. We need an opportunity to score goals. We need to make sure we guard against complacency. And Thiago Silva is the man to do that. Azpilicueta, again, I've gone for right centre-back because I think he's naturally converted himself into a centre-back just because of the legs that he doesn't have in that position anymore to play right wing-back. So it makes sense to go for him as a centre-back. As I said, our options are limited based on the fact that we don't have Koulibaly. Wesley Fofana's still out as well. Now, I've gone for Marc Cucurella as our left wing-back because he knows Brighton through and through. And I think Graham Potter will trust him to do the job. Yes, he's not been well. Yes, he's had tonsillitis and he's lost 5 kilos, but I think he'll be up for this game, and I can't really see Graham Potter leaving him out of the team. And if we are playing in a back five, I think he gives you more going forward than maybe Ben Chilwell does as well. So I think Marc Cucurella will be our left wing back tomorrow if we do go for a back five. Now the two in midfield that I've gone for, as I said, we're going to need energy. We're going to need a lot of legs. We're going to need to try and control the ball and dominate that midfield. And I've gone for Mateo Kovacic, who, if you watched our game against Salzburg in the week, you'll know that he played really well. And Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who I feel is more effective in midfield than he is as a right wing back, and that's just obvious. He gets the ball forward. You know, he's powerful, he's strong, he can take on players. Obviously his final pass, his final bit of the play is questioned at times, but I think in midfield alongside Kovacic, he's going to give you that energy. You know, he's going to give you what you need to go forward, and also defensively he's good as well. You know, his defensive side of his game is really good as well. So I would go with Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Kovacic in midfield. Now Mason Mount is one of those players that has been doing really well whilst Graham Potter's been at the club. He's done really well. Impressed with him so far. I'm hoping for another game. He only came on for the best part of 2 minutes in the week, so he's fully rested. He should be up for this game, and we need to see that same consistency from Mason Mount that we've been seeing whilst Graham Potter's been in charge, going forward as well. And he will obviously have to do some of that sort of midfield work alongside Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Kovacic as well, and maybe draw himself back into this role here in the middle of the park. But you expect him to be driving forward a lot more. And with the wing-backs that will hopefully be in place for Brighton as well, it should allow Cucurella to push on. The same with Pulisic as well. So you expect the two wing backs to be able to drive in and do what they do well, especially when we get the opportunity to. And one of the things that I got to see against Salzburg was the amount of numbers and bodies and the tempo, the speed of trying to get the ball forward. Really worked with Sterling and Pulisic as our wing backs. I'm expecting the same against Brighton, allowing Cucurella to come into these areas here, you know, Sterling to tuck in, the same with Aubameyang, Mason Mount driving into that area as well. You might even see Kovacic come here. It just allows for that more options in the box, and I think we're going to need that going forward. And you know, the same will be said about our wing backs. You know, they'll have to be on their job. They'll have to be switched on at all times, because it's only going to take a minute of lapse in concentration, like we got to see against Salzburg when Amadou scored his goal. It's only going to take one moment for them to break through, whip a beautiful ball in, and Danny Welbeck will be on the end of it. So I've gone for Mason Mount in the middle. I've gone for Raheem Sterling and Patrick Aubameyang up front. Now, two players that started relatively well for us when they joined the club. Sterling seems to have dipped off, and you know, Sterling likes to take 20 touches before he decides what he wants to do with the ball. And Aubameyang started well, you know, back-to-back goals, but he had a relatively poor game in his last match. So I think we need to see more from those two going forwards. It does obviously give us options off the bench, you know, Kai Havertz, Hakim Ziyech, also Conor Gallagher as well, who I thought played really well midweek. He might feature in the game at some point as well. But Armando Broja is another one who it'd be interesting to see if Graham Potter starts with Armando Broja or if he does stick with Aubameyang. But I think this game potentially could suit Armando Broja, especially with the three centre-backs for Brighton, the two wing-backs bombing up and down the wing. I think this could potentially suit Armando Broja in this game, but I do think Graham Potter will try and go with Aubameyang. If it's not working, potentially might switch it and bring on Broja. You know, Gallagher could come into the game. Havertz, like I said before, as well. Carney, Chukwuemeka is another player that potentially could play a part in tomorrow's game. So I think we've got the options off the bench, which is good. It's a luxury to have. And obviously we're not fully got the complement of our team yet as well with the injury. So I think we have to hit the ground running again, just like Salzburg. Hit the ground running. Take our chances. I think that's one of the things that we didn't do against Salzburg. You know, the amount of opportunities we made, missed chances, misplaced balls, possession lost. I think we need to retain possession. That's going to be key for us tomorrow. I think that midfield too of Loftus-Cheek, Kovacic, or whoever's in that midfield will have a massive job to do tomorrow to retain that ball, win the ball back, overturn, and get it between the channels, between the lines, and work those channels in terms of the space that we're hopefully going to be able to create tomorrow as well. But massive game, as I said, we need to perform with Zagreb in mind, but more so with Arsenal following Sunday as well. So that's going to be a massive game for us, but this is going to be crucial. We have to get these 3 points. If you haven't done so already, go and check out our score predictions in episode 72. You'll be able to find the video in our YouTube, or go to our Spotify and check out what our score predictions were. I'm not going to give them away, but this has been T.Dot. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. And I'll be back with another video very, very soon. Thanks for watching.